Welcome everyone to today's webinar where we are focusing on mass communications, how to effectively do that with some technology and some tools that we will be talking about a little bit later. I am one of your hosts. My name is Timothy Cross. I am the ShareFaith Media Director, and of course,
I am David Choate, and for those of you who thought this mass communications was about how to talk about communion, whole other mass communication.
You know what? I've been wanting to use this all week. It's done.
You know, you have these ideas in your mind, right? And you're thinking, you know, and then halfway out, it's like, no, that was
yeah, it's all right.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
We'll get through this together. Everyone here has just, like, they understand what they sign up for at this point.
Yeah, they've seen enough of me to know at this point. But hey, let's do something a little bit more.
Tell the people who you are before you
yes.
tell them who you are.
That's right. I launched out with a dumb joke and didn't even introduce myself. I'm David Choate, the director of ShareFaith Kids. Put together our Sunday school lessons here at ShareFaith. So very excited to be a part of this conversation today.
All right. Excellent. So now tell them what we got planned for them today.
We want to start with a poll today, and we want to get a little bit of feedback from you guys of what you are going to be using to communicate your Easter service this year. So let's put that poll up. We got a lot of things on there and would love to hear from you guys. You can check all that apply, and we'd love to see how many of you are going to be live streaming your service, who's going to be pre-recording a video, if any of you are going to be doing video conferencing, some sort of like interactive element. Wow, a lot of great stuff coming in already. We've got text and voice messaging, online and text giving. That one seems to be skyrocketing at the moment.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope the website is up and going. That's important as well. Social media is looking big. We've got mobile app, kids curriculum, and then how many of you are going to be talking cybersecurity as well? So we're going to give it what?
We're going to give it a little bit more time.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to give it a little bit more time. Something, if you don't know, I want to talk a little bit about Ministry Brands. We didn't share that at the beginning. Ministry Brands is a family of brands that have come together, bringing technology and integrating it together. We're all insanely passionate about helping the church succeed through technology. Even with this question on, how are you planning, what technology are you planning to leverage this year for Easter 2020? We are asking this question, but it's also giving us an idea at Ministry Brands on, okay, here's the touch points that we need to focus on a little bit more. Maybe here's some more content that we can kind of create some things around. I mean, it's just, we're passionate about helping the church and seeing the church succeed with technology. So if you don't know who Ministry Brands that is, that's kind of who we are. We are a mixture of all of these different brands, all come together under one family, and we're all about integrating through technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. And, I think sometimes integration is a buzzword, but what that means for us is it's people that know each other, support teams that know each other, that ability to go, that may not be my product or area, but I know enough about it to get you to the right person. And so it really just helps everything work together great. And then behind all of it, are guys like Tim and myself and so many others that serve in our churches, that know technology. And so it's great to be a part of these conversations and the Ministry Brands family. So,
yep.
All right, poll results are up, hot off the presses.
Which one's number one, David? Tell the people what number one is.
Online and text giving, which doesn't surprise me. I think that's fantastic that that's in place. And not just, sometimes I think there can be a bit of cynicism like, oh, it's just the churches want to make sure that giving is up and running. I think more importantly, as congregants, we want to know what we can do, especially right now, to make sure that our churches are financially stable and have the resources they need going forward. And if there are any special needs or something like that have come up, we want to know and be able to give toward them.
And we did, to your point, we did a whole webinar focused specifically on digital giving, and that is available on our resource page. But we brought in Pastor Dave, right?
Yeah, Pastor Dave.
Yeah, it was Pastor Dave. Yeah. We did a lot of webinars last week, everybody.
So
they all blend together. But Pastor Dave, there's a great conversation where he just talked about how for the first time he gave online as the senior pastor. He comes from a little bit of a more rural church. So online giving wasn't necessarily something that he was used to, but he realized that in this season, people that his church wanted to support the work that they were doing. And the church is the avenue that Christ used to reach people. It's an important part of it. So, it was a great webinar. And then we brought Casey in, who is one of our ministry brand specialists in the digital giving space. So it was a great webinar. There's a lot of heart and the why behind why it's important, but also the practical that Casey did. So it was a really good one.
Yeah. And I remember Dave talked about like 3 words for giving, and he talked about safety, security. And the one that surprised me that was really good is he brought up the word sacred, and that there is this sacred thing that happens when we give to the church, and we take what God has given us and we give part of it back. And so anyway, it was a great conversation.
It's really good.
So
let's
another
hit the people with the next community poll. Let's do it.
Whoa. Time out. Let's just do a little bit of a recap.
Sure.
Let them breathe.
Sure. Okay. All right, fine.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay. So want to do, if you guys don't know, this is day 6 of our webinar series. So there's been a lot of great content, and we want to recap real quick what's been going on. Last week, we did an overview of Easter Online, a high-level picture, a lot of great content in there. We did a worship and live streaming webinar that was fantastic. We had Pastor Brandon, the worship pastor from church. What was it? Live Church. That's right. Live Church from Tulsa. And that was such a good conversation. And then we had Sean Dunster from churchstreaming.tv, and he came in and talked to us some of the nuts and bolts of live streaming, some of the technical things, but then perspective stuff that's really important to keep in mind. As Tim mentioned, a fantastic conversation about digital giving. They got at the heart of it, but also the technical side of it as well. And so if those are topics that you are interested in, we really encourage you to check those out. And then also, we had another closed out last week with a conversation on preparing your website and mobile app for Easter, and had Pastor Matt on, who talked about church online and some perspectives for doing that well. Jonathan Deathridge came on to talk about best practices for your website. And then Rodney Ross, our M1 mobile app Jedi Master, came on, and he talked through some principles there. So it was great.
It's fantastic. There's a lot. It's almost crazy doing daily webinars, because this part where we describe what's happened, there's just more that's being added to the list every day.
People are at home just come on, can we get to it? But before we do,
let's talk about yesterday. Yesterday's webinar. So yesterday's webinar was fantastic. What I love so much about it was me and David sat down and really talked about what do we want to focus on to get your kids' ministry ready for Easter. And David had this great idea. It's let's give this outline and then the resources from ShareFaith Kids that anyone can get. They're free. We made them available free, that you can get. And basically, if you follow this outline and you get these resources, you are able to create and craft a online service for your kids' ministry in time, ready for this Easter. That was our goal. We want to prepare you, get you everything you need to be ready for this weekend. It's here, David. It's here.
It is here, and a lot of great content packed in there. We made available to you guys Bible videos, slideshows, activity pages, family devotionals, and then, like Tim said, a script to bring it all together. So again, moderators are going to be posting links to where you can find all of this great content. Now, let's get to poll number 2. We've delayed it long enough, so we'll go ahead and throw that up.
Hopefully we've delayed it long enough.
Well, we'll see. All right. So poll number 2, what online ministry topic does your church need more help on? Okay, so we've covered a lot of topics already this week, and we've got some on the agenda, but we'd love to hear from you all. As we look at things going forward, this still is our biggest challenge, or this is the area where we would like either more expertise, more perspective, or we just don't feel like we've got it figured out at all.
Because something to keep in mind is right now, a lot of our focus, for obvious reasons, is on Easter. Easter is one of the biggest times of the year for the church. So we really wanted to come alongside all of you, partner with you, and to help you succeed this year at Easter. But that doesn't, online church isn't going to stop there. I mean, we're in this really different season for the church, which creates a lot of opportunity for us for sure. But we want to make sure that we at Ministry Brands want to make sure you are prepared for church online going forward, even beyond just Easter, especially beyond just Easter, because we're going to be in this online church a little bit longer. So definitely fill that poll out, answer the poll so that we know it's like, okay, here's some key areas that we can still focus on, that we can maybe do a special, unique webinar on, whatever the case might be. We just want to get you the resources you need to be successful.
Yeah, and there are certain things that churches are doing now that you might, regardless of COVID or any of that, you might want to keep doing going forward. I know for my church, one thing that we did that I've been loving is Q&A sessions after the main message, where we get to get into a room together and just chat and throw out questions and ask and answer them. And so while you might want some direction in how to do that best, there's also things that come up like, is that safe? Is that secure? How do I share those links? Where if you do go continue doing this going forward, there's some other things you want to get in place as well. Yep. Looking at the poll coming in here, looks like live streaming is still a big topic for us. And social media is jumping up there as well, which is good.
I'm so excited because that's what we're talking about today.
So we will get to that. While that's being filled out, we want to give you a preview of some webinars that are coming up this week. And for some of you, the very things that you're interested in, we do have webinars coming for those things. A couple of daily webinars that are going on right now that are important. We want to make sure you know about. One, from today through Thursday, every day there's going to be a live streaming webinar that is going to be hosted by churchstreaming.tv. So moderators can provide links to that in the chat section. Also, from today through Thursday, there are also going to be webinars ongoing for digital giving. And these are specifically tailored to people who have signed up for digital giving through one of our providers here at Ministry Brands. And these webinars are designed to make sure you have everything you need to get that up and running and working well.
Good.
Today, we're talking mass communication. Tim is going to be coming on, and you're going to be sharing some thoughts on social media. You've got some free resources I'm excited to talk about.
Yep.
And then we're going to have Dylan on from High Ground Solution, and he's going to talk about what mass communication is, why it's so important, how you do it well. Also today.
Is there a bonus today, David?
Are we
giving people a bonus webinar?
Bonus webinar. Do you have a sound effect,
bonus,
like a voice effect that we could do for bonus webinars? I'm just going to put him on. He's like, I think I have it.
Bonus. That's all I got.
I love it. Bonus webinar, e-giving tips for parishes. That's, again, a separate registration. So moderators will be dropping that link in the discussion section. And then Wednesday, a big one, an exciting one that I'm looking forward to, rethinking risk, cybersecurity. I'm going to have a conversation with Ryan Carter from Protect My Ministry, and we'll talk about some of the new challenges and threats that have appeared and emerged, in particular, as we go into this space of church online.
I cannot emphasize the importance of coming to that webinar, because when you're in the church and you have that building, you have some safety in that. You should already be doing those background safety checks for your kids, ministry, and all just the various things that you do to keep your church safe. But now that the church is moving online, making sure that you're keeping that level of security and safety is a huge part for the church, and we don't want to mess this part up. So if you can't make everyone, don't miss that one, because that one is going to be insanely important, especially for the future.
Yeah, and then Thursday we're going to wrap it all up and just give you some final tips and tricks as we head into Easter. One thing we do want to highlight is, as we've been going through these webinars, we've been seeing a lot of fantastic ideas and examples being thrown out of what your church is doing for Easter. We would love for you to share those with us. So if you have things that you're going to be doing, whether it's on social media, a website, your kids' ministry, invitations, any number of things, that are using some of the products or resources that we've been talking about, please share those with us. We would love to highlight them as we go into that Thursday webinar and just give everyone a last, celebration, like Easter is coming. Look at some of this great work that's being done. If you're looking for maybe some last minute inspiration, we can share some of those examples as well. So feel free to drop those in the comment section. If it's something that's better situated for email, you can send that to careteam@ministrybrands.com.
Love it. Love it. Last, but certainly not least, as we've mentioned pretty consistently throughout each webinar, we have a couple things available to you as resources. Number one, if you have any questions on anything, not only can you ask questions today in the webinar through the Q&A feature, but going forward, we have a team dedicated to helping you succeed in this time. And so if you have any questions on our products or anything like that, reach out to careteam@ministrybrands.com. Additionally, into that, we have a website that we've put together where we are making all of these resources available. That link is info.ministrybrands.com/ministry-online. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we got the links for you in the comments below. So definitely make sure that you have all of that and you're available and you save it. Just bookmark the page. It's a great way to go about it. All right?
Fantastic. Fantastic. So without further ado, let's bring on our first guest. And some say he's overrated, but I call him a good friend. Mr. Timothy Cross.
This guest, let's just set the bar low, everyone.
Yeah, it's going to make every other guest just look fantastic.
So much better. So a little bit of background on me. My name is Timothy Cross. Yes, I'm the ShareFaith media director now, but before that, my role in a church was that of a media director / communication director / creative director. And it was a pretty large church. I was able to do that and serve that with. And there's just some things that I wanted to kind of share with you, especially looking forward, looking ahead at Easter and then beyond. And I love that one of the polls, the second poll that we did, David, the big question was social media. And we're going to talk a bit about that today and just some ways that you can engage your church. Because here's the thing we need to remember during this time. Church needs to happen every day of the week. And historically, I would say most of the time we keep church to just the Sunday weekend experience. But now we have this amazing opportunity to reach out to our communities on a daily basis and engage them in so many various and unique ways. David, one of the things I saw a church doing was a daily devotional from the senior pastor. Yeah. Now, before that might not have been something that was even considered. But from what I saw this church doing it, what they saw in the comments and the prayers and the testimonies is that this was something that allowed the senior pastor to reach in to the home on a daily basis and encourage his church in his community.
Yeah, on that point, my senior pastor at Rogue Valley Fellowship here in Medford, Oregon, every day this week, he's sending us a 3 to 4 minute video for a different day of Holy Week, right? And he'll give us a thought, he'll share some perspective, and then he'll point us to scriptures to read and kind of reflect upon. And I love it. If I'm out on a walk, I just listen to his short thought and kind of contemplate what he's saying. This morning, I woke up and it was there on my phone, and it was a great way to start the day. It's just such a unique and cool opportunity for pastors to have, like you're saying, that daily conversation. And it really lends itself well to social media. Here's a 3-minute thing, And
I think that goes to the point. So we're talking mass communications today. So let's just talk about how we approach communications from a church kind of point of view, especially around this topic of social media, which really is one of the main platforms right now to communicate to your church. Because, I mean, we're all stuck at home. We're not doing much right now. And most of us are scrolling on our social media platforms. Well, we just got to be honest about that. That's okay. And Netflix. We're all trying to find something to watch on Netflix. But as a church, when we look at social media, it's super important to kind of approach it from the perspective of like, we are reaching out to our people. You want to be authentic. We talked about this. I don't remember what day was it last Friday. We really emphasized this point in last Friday's webinar, but being authentic in your communication, it cannot be stressed enough, especially on social media. David, I love that you shared that story from your pastor, because it's like, I bet you, I'm just going to bet that the video is probably either a webcam from his laptop or like his phone, right?
Yeah, it was just him at his house. And what's so cool about it is sometimes, depending on the size of your church, you don't always get to spend time in your pastor's house. And so there can be something cool about seeing, your pastor, or it could be your kids' men leader, or whoever it is, sitting at their kitchen table or on the couch, or just a kid jumps up in their lap. And it's like, yeah, it's real. To your point, it's authentic, and it just resonates in a way that sometimes everyone in a sanctuary doesn't.
Yeah, which speaks to that point that I really want to emphasize, and that is, you just got to go for it. Like, you're going to know your church better than anybody else. The best thing that you can do for your communication to your community is reflect on what reaches them where you're at, and then respond to it on social media. Like, if your church is a little bit more, how we say, goofy, have some fun.
How do we say goofy?
Have some fun on social media. Create a GIF or do something that is just like, kind of, it's the point is like, you need to reach your church the way that they respond to it is unique to them. And it's important. Like, we can give you generic, like, big picture, and we're gonna jump into that. We have some ideas that we're gonna jump into that you could do that are going to be possibly a great fit for your church, but you still have to throw your flavor on it. You still have to throw your special touch on it that makes you unique as a church. Because the last thing that we want to do is just, we're not cookie cutters. Like, we're not an exact copy of another church. Every church is unique. Every church is different. The main things all stay the same, right? Jesus is our Lord and Savior, and we are sharing the good news of the gospel, and that's one of the big things, right? But when it comes to the unique things that make you special as a church, it's important to emphasize those on these platforms. So I can talk this. I love it. I love seeing the churches reach out and doing it in new and unique ways. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's what we'll do, man. I'll throw out some of these ideas. You can add some commentary, and
let's do it.
And as we go through them, great social media isn't just one way. It's not just the church doing it. Ultimately, you want to put something out there and then have your congregation embrace it and share it themselves. And so the first one that I really love is like an Easter invitation challenge on social media, where you could take a graphic or something, explain your Easter online service, and then challenge your congregation to share it on their timeline, and then maybe tag 5 other people that they want to see it as well.
Yeah, I love that. So it basically creates some graphics that can be used to invite their friends, and you can either post it on your official Facebook page as a church, or you can make it available on your website somewhere where people can download it and share it themselves. Either way, exactly that. So it's challenge your church members to share this and invite and /tag 5 different people. I read this statistic, it was a couple of years ago, David, that talked about 8 out of 10 people will go to church for Easter if they're personally invited. That was a crazy statistic to me, because if we all just, and there was that personal invite, that was the, hey, I want to invite you to church. Now, it can still be online. Like, hey, I want to invite you to my church this Easter online. And you as a church member, like you can encourage everyone to say, hey, like give them a call right before the service starts and say, hey, maybe it's that interaction between these two families where it's like, hey, here's our family this Easter. Here's how we look. How are your family doing? You know, they can be in pajamas. Who knows? Well, I don't care. Like
now to that point, here's another great idea. Because I thought this one was fantastic. Have different videos of families in your church saying that they're basically like an RSVP video, right? So, hey, from the Johnsons, we're showing up, and you know, cool. Whatever it's going to be, and then they can share that on their own timeline, and you know, maybe tag the original Easter post or whatever it is. But anytime it's personal and you get to see real people, it's gold. I
mean, we live in this amazing time where we have the power of video at our fingertips. Everyone, for the most part, has a mobile phone that has the ability to record video now. So to your point, David, I mean, from a church outreach perspective, it's this, you go to the Facebook page for the church and you just see families talking about how they're excited for Easter. You could ask questions. You could pose a question on your Facebook page. Hey, everyone, here's what we're thinking for Easter, or show us your Easter best. And you get your church to engage that way. It could be through video. It could just be through responding or photos or whatever it might be. Like, I love that idea. It's giving your church an opportunity to respond in a personal way.
Yeah, let's look at one more, and then I really want to make sure we get into the free content that you've provided. So I think another big opportunity for people is optimizing their website for Easter. And we talked about this, but one way that you can specifically do it is by creating a landing page specifically for your Easter service.
We have a good example here, actually, from Wheaton Bible Church.
Yeah, and so we can drop the URL in the chat. It's wheatonbible.org /Easter-2020. But what I really love about it is that it just creates a place where people can come, find the link to the live stream. If there's different services, they know where they're going to go to find those services. You can check out their kids' live Facebook group for kid-friendly Easter activities. Got live streams for Good Friday. It's really just like, hey, if you need any information, here it is. You don't have to scour our website to find it. That Easter invite kit, I love, right?
Almost like we just talked about that.
But so I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, that's great, but we don't got the wow factor, right? Like we want something with a little, you know,
you're
little
saying
razzmatazz.
So what? I'm sorry. What is a razzmatazz?
You're about to show people what razzmatazz is.
All right, everyone. I'm about to show you some razzmatazz, apparently. All right. So in kind of the same flow on what we did yesterday for ShareFaith Kids, and ShareFaith Kids really partnered with, we partnered with you, giving you some free resources. ShareFaith Media, since I'm the media director, I can do whatever I want. We're giving away another free pack, but this one's really focused on the Easter service. So we have this amazing graphic that our team put together called Easter Love Has Come. And in addition to this free pack, and the moderators will be dropping the link and we'll make this available later and all that good stuff, is we're giving some additional social media graphics out in this pack for free. We're giving you the image pack. So it's all the JPEGs, but we're also giving you the Photoshop files. So if you want to take it, tweak it, change it, you know, whatever it might be, make it a little more personal for your church, add your logos, whatever it is, you have those files there. And then in addition to that, we're even giving away a sermon bumper is what we call it, or an intro or a mini movie, other various words that you could use. But it's just kind of like this thought that you could edit or input into your live service where it kind of intros this idea of love has come. And I'm not going to lie, this video looks really good. I did make it, so I'm biased in that way. But, you know, it's scripturally based, and it really focuses on that concept of love has come, which, again, is just outstanding. And then the last thing that we have available in this pack is like a 5-minute countdown. So if you need a countdown for your service, or you want to put something on the front end of your service, we provide a 5-minute countdown. So this, again, is all free all available. We'll make sure you're going to get a link to this website. Just fill out the form and it'll redirect you, and you'll get a direct link to the download. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what's cool about that is a lot of the content that you've shared there, Tim, if someone wanted, they could take what we talked about yesterday with kids ministry, kind of the flow of that script, and they could pre-record their own Easter service if they wanted with some of those elements as well. So
absolutely they could. Yep.
Yeah. So just again, there's a way of like taking these elements and like merging them together with what you are wanting to present. And we covered that yesterday. And I think there's, maybe a cool opportunity where it isn't just applicable to kids, but you can use it in a wide range of formats.
Yeah. Love it. So hopefully you find those resources, beneficial to you. We really, the heart of Ministry Brands, I keep emphasizing this because I really believe it. And I know so many others do, is we want to support you. We want to see you succeed as a company. And ShareFaith is one of the brands that are a part of the Ministry Brands family. So when we saw what was happening in this world, me, David, and a bunch of other people went to our products and said, okay, how do we use our products to help churches succeed in this time? So this is one of the ways, one of these free packs that you can get. And if you need more design resources or anything like that, you can definitely check us out at sharefaith.com. David, I had to say it. I had to get it out there.
No, I know. I'm like a recovering interrupter. It's bad. It's
all
bad.
Right, cut me off. Get me out of here.
What I will say though is so now you've got a little razzmatazz.
But
how could you get that out there like in a mass kind of scale? And I think that's an important thing, is that while being one-on-one and person-to-person, right now, communication is great and it's a new opportunity. Depending on the size of your church, it is also important to be able to go, this message is going to go out to everyone, and we know that we've communicated it well. And so that's what mass communication is about. And so right now we want to bring on Dylan from High Ground Solution, and he's going to talk to us about what mass communication is, why it matters, and how we do it well.
We're bringing the professionals on and getting us out of here, David. That's what we're doing.
Amateur hour is
We're out
over.
of here. They're kicking us out. Here's the real good stuff. This is the stuff that you came for.
Hey, guys. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun. I was trying to think. We've been friends for so long. We go so far back. I remember first meeting you both when my church had a prison ministry, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember this, actually.
No? Oh, okay.
No,
I do. It was a rough time in my life. I don't know. Maybe another time.
We have become so close over the years. Tom, Dale, I really want to thank you guys so much.
You know what? Dolan? It's totally awesome, man. We're so glad that you're here.
Amateur hour is still going.
Amateur hour is continuing with Dylan for mass communications. Dylan, take it away.
That's right. Get that little trumpet ready.
Here, I got you.
I can just feel it. There
it is. I got you.
I can feel the eyeballs rolling right now. Well, thank you guys seriously for having me on. Yes, we want to talk mass communication, specifically what we at High Ground Solutions do as part of the Ministry Brands family. And we're so excited about is our text messaging solution that we provide. But we wanted to come on and talk to all of our church family a little bit about that. So I brought a little slide deck with me, which I actually haven't seen yet. No, I'm teasing. So in the 90 minutes that I have left, I'd just like to that was a joke, but I was really hoping somebody would laugh at that, because this isn't going to take about 90 minutes. So now I've told I have about 10 minutes, but communicating what matters when it matters, how to cut through the noise and get your message heard. So we're gonna jump right in here and talk about some channels that you really want to focus on. So how do you communicate how does your church communicate now? Is it effective? Is it enough? Typically, what we see many times are people kind of covering most of the bases, email. But here's the question I always like to ask folks is, how many emails do you have that are either unread or unattended in your inbox right now. So, you know, if I could see everybody say, raise your hand if you have unattended or unread emails in your inbox, and everybody's hand goes up. And then what I like to ask is, well, raise your hand if you have any text messages on your phone that are unattended that you haven't taken a look at. And typically all the hands go down. The reality is that we all have these communications devices in the palm of our hands, which makes it just a great way for those of us who need to get important messages out to drop those important messages right in front of somebody, right in the palm of their hand, right in front of their eyeballs. So the other thing that folks typically will do is we're still using the phone. In fact, our church kind of did this interesting thing. We're adopting some of the more senior members of our congregation. Some of the younger folks are adopting those more senior members, and we're making some phone calls, and maybe we're driving by the house right now, waving and honking the horn. We're not going in. We're still social distancing. But phone calls are still an important thing. And I talked to a client this week, actually. He said, well, we've divided up some phone numbers, and we're all making phone calls around the congregation to just stay in touch with people. So there's that. And then there's direct mail. That's a classic, I say. Did they get that mail piece when it went out? How much is that costing you? So there's some things to think about in that regard, but also something to think about these days is with the COVID-19 pandemic is are people wanting to get more mail right now? So maybe that isn't necessarily the best way to communicate with people. But nonetheless, it is something that classically or traditionally churches, they do a lot of direct mail. So let's hit that next slide, guys. All right, so what do you need to communicate? As a church family, we all have kind of the major things that we need to get. We need to get updates and announcements. We need to communicate service times. We definitely need to communicate how to give, especially, and we've talked a lot about that on these webinars that you guys have on these webinars, and that is how do we transition from the offering plate to things like text to give or online giving. So that's really important as well. How to serve. That's another great thing these days in the environment that we're in right now is there are still opportunities. In fact, I would say that this is one of the greatest opportunities for the church to be the church and to spread that hope. And there are people looking for answers and people looking for hope and people looking for joy. So there are opportunities for us to get out there and serve in ways that are safe for us and safe for others, but there's still service opportunities to connect with people. So the church can be the church in communicating those opportunities. As I mentioned, our church is sort of adopting some of the senior members of our congregation. So how to get in touch with you, visitors, prayer requests. We've touched a little bit on that in these webinars as well. And there's some great ways to do that, especially using text messaging as well. So that's something we're seeing a lot of our customers doing. So I wanted to kind of go into 4 principles here for effective mass communication. Just high level here, principle number 1, multiple channels. And then we're going to break these down a little bit further on here in the slides. So multiple channels. We have to ask ourselves with our mass communication, is this helpful? And we have to be honest with ourselves about that, because a lot of times we send things out and it's like, oh, everybody want to know this, but wait a minute, I'm not sure I really care about this. So is this helpful? Is this serving a purpose? Another principle here is we really want to be concise with our communication, especially when you're talking about text messaging. We all have the relative or friend, or maybe we are the one who sends the wall of text. So people don't necessarily want to get that. So let's just be concise and clear and to the point. That's effective communication. That's nothing new. And then lastly here, give them a clear call to action. So we'll talk a little bit about these 4 things. We'll break these 4 things down here just in the next few minutes. So why is using multiple channels important? So our first principle. So to be effective, messages have to be heard. To be heard, they have to cut through the noise, and not everyone communicates the same. So right now, as we see here, email inboxes are overflowing. We're getting a lot of COVID-19 stuff. I told my wife, if I have to read one more email, one more company's COVID-19 statement, I'm going to scream. I get it. It's like we all have the same template that everybody's sending out to their customers. Voice messages. Now, this is something as well that a lot of our customers like to use. Voice messaging, it's personal. Again, I'll go back to my church, picking up the phone and calling somebody, them hearing your voice or hearing a voice, especially as people are feeling more isolated and cut off from the world. And we know, some of us, I know that we kind of joked around, some of us are kind of digging this whole isolation thing. And I don't mind it. I always describe myself as I play really well with others, but I don't mind solitude. So, we're a homeschool family. I work from home. So we were kind of ready for, we kind of have been sheltering in place for a while. This is just kind of not really very disruptive, but to some people, this is very disruptive. Some people, this is very isolating. They don't like the solitude. They need the personal interaction. And so voice messages and things like that, phone calls can really be important in those types of cases. And then lastly here, multiple channels, SMS text messaging, that is also perceived as actually being a very personal form of communication, and they do get read. So when you think about text messaging, when someone, an inbox sort of serves as a bit of a buffer or sort of like a call screener, it's like, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. And then when I get to it, we'll see. But text messaging puts that message right in the palm of my hand. And there's a perception amongst cell phone users that, and maybe some of you agree, maybe you don't, but if they've made it to text messaging, there must be some sort of personal communication there. I typically don't mind receiving a text message. So that really breaks through a lot of the barriers that email has kind of gotten tripped up on. So let's talk about how effective is SMS text messaging. These were some statistics as I started to learn about when I first got into this technology business. It just blew me away. And the first one is just amazing, is that people spend up to 9 hours a day on their phones. And when I first saw that, I was like, there's no way. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe that's actually kind of true. When you think about every time that you check a text message, an email, or you log on for something, 9 hours a day. Those would be like power users, I guess. The average person checks their phone 80 times a day. That still seems really high to me, but as I think about my own usage, it's like, yeah, every little thing I do on my phone, that's probably true. 75% of people prefer to receive an SMS text message over an email. That's absolutely true. I much prefer getting information via text message than email. I absolutely don't mind that. 98% of text messages are opened. Not surprising, I don't think, to many of us. 99% of them are read. Again, that's not surprising. These statistics are just so high for text messaging. Email just can't even touch this. 95% of SMS text messages are read within 3 minutes of being sent. The average response time to an SMS text message is 90 seconds. That is astounding. So when you send an SMS text message to somebody and you're asking, you have that call to action, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but you're asking for a response. On average, you can expect a response in 90 seconds. We work with a lot of college recruiters, and they'll tell me, we started experimenting with your text messaging, and we had been able to get in touch with prospective students in a few seconds that we had been chasing with email and voicemail for months. And I love hearing that, because that is them getting results that they're looking for from our solution. SMS text messages, this is the whopper here. SMS text messages get an 800% better response rate than email. That, to me, is just worth its weight in gold. That's worth the price of admission. The average click-through rate, if you're sending out links via text message, the average click-through rate is 50%. So email marketing, traditionally, as it's done traditionally, can't really touch this at all. And then lastly here, thousands of SMS text messages can be sent for fractions of pennies each. So it's super, super cheap. The great thing I love about text messaging is that this form of communication has become a universal, global form of communication. Everybody text messages. You don't have to be dependent on people downloading a certain app or using a certain social media channel or anything like that. Is that when I say everybody, most everybody in the developed world, and in some cases in not the developed world, text message it's ubiquitous across the planet. So cuts through cultural barriers and everything like that. So it's across the planet. So let's roll on to the next slide here. Okay, so what we want to ask ourselves about our message, is it helpful? Does your message solve a problem? Does your message make someone aware of something that's important to them or to the church? And here's a great question. It's very simple. Would you find it helpful yourself? I alluded to this earlier. Before you hit that send button, it's like, do I really care about this? Would I care about this? Put yourself in the seat of the consumer, so to speak. And then as you craft your messages, and with text messages, kind of like tweets, we want to be very concise to the point, as we mentioned before. Is this the best way to say this? Keep in mind that this is still kind of a two-dimensional form of communication. There's no voice inflection unless you're using voice messaging, but specifically for text messaging, there's no voice inflection. It's hard to communicate emotion. So we want to be very conscious of that as our messages go out and how they're received by people. And then what might their questions be if I'm sending out this message, or can I anticipate questions? Am I sending a message that's going to generate more questions than it's answering, or am I going to answer more questions ahead of time, head off more questions? And can I anticipate the questions that my audience is going to have? So another thing here we want to talk about is be concise with your messaging. Is it clear? Are you communicating short to the point? I admit I struggle with this. I'm a talker. I'm a writer. I probably am the one who sends the wall of text. So I'm sorry. I admit it. I'm a recovering wall texter, I guess. Is your message easy to read? I don't think my mom is watching this, but I'll say this. My mom tends to use voice to text messaging, but she doesn't proofread it before she sends it out. And so half the time I'm trying to translate what her message actually was. And I think it's like, I tell my wife, yeah, I think I know what she's talking about here, but she just kind of dictates it and then hits the send button. So, people need to proofread those messages. Is it easy to understand? Is it easy to understand why the message is important? I'm sending this to you because I think it's important. I think you're going to want to know this. Does it make sense to you why it's important? Are we effectively communicating that? And is the message is the intended action that the message should initiate, is it clear? Is it clear what I'm asking people to do? If I'm sending you a text message, I'm sending you something that I want you to know. Is it important to you? And is it clear what I'm asking you to do? And then what questions could your recipients or could your audience have that you could answer now? And this kind of goes back to what I mentioned a second ago. Can we anticipate things people are going to want to know and add value by sending these text messages or by sending text messages? And of course, voice messages as well can be used for that as well. All right, call to action. This is what marketers, they use the abbreviation CTA. Where's the CTA? What's the CTA look like? What kind of CTA are we going to put on a page? The call to action. So why are you sending this message? What do you expect people to do? What action should be taken? What do you want them to do as a result of receiving this message? And is the call to action clear? And we've alluded a little bit previously to this. And how easy is it for them to take action? Is that next step, is it just, hey, tap right here? We're not asking them to take 3 or 4 or 5 steps that nobody's going to take or people are going to get lost in. Say, hey, here's what I want you to do. Tap right here to do it. And then what questions could it cause that you could answer now? And again, we talked a little bit about that as well. All right, so some of the things that you could use text messaging for that we're seeing a lot of our customers doing some really cool things. We could welcome new visitors and guests and make prayer requests really easy. So have visitors text a short code to get a link to a virtual visitor's card, if you will. And that can ensure that somebody can reach out and welcome them after the service. So the cool thing you could do is they could actually text a keyword to the short code, and then they would receive an automatic text back with a link. They simply tap that link, fill out a very quick form, and then somebody can be in touch with them. So that's a way to really take the visitor's card, the old visitor's card idea, into the virtual space, into the digital space. And that's not just something that is being used right now because of COVID-19. That's something that people have been doing for a little while. It's a pretty cool idea. Actually, when we all get back to normal, we can put that short code and that keyword up on a screen, and people can do it right there from the pew. So have prayer requests submitted easily through the through texting a short code. Here again, people can submit their prayer requests that way. The prayer team can receive those requests and aggregate those requests and address those. The response can also include a link to a simple form we talked about. Here again, the prayer request. So another thing is registrations. We have a lot of customers who like to use text messaging for registration. So maybe text a keyword to the short code for a certain conference coming up. You'll get an email, or excuse me, a text message back with a link. You can register for that conference coming up. And as I talked about a second ago, the form can notify your prayer team leaders, and the request can be exported into a spreadsheet, and your team can access a spreadsheet, use that to make calls, follow-ups, and things like that. Okay, so use text messaging to increase your viewership. We've been talking a lot. Obviously, what's on everybody's mind is streaming our services now. We're all watching our services from our living rooms. I'm actually going to be a little bit sad when I can't take my easy chair to church with me, because I've really gotten used to that. But you can send out text messages with a link to your service. I'm getting messages from my church just before the service started. In fact, last week they had a technical glitch that we were all kind of wondering what's going on. It hasn't started yet, must be a problem. Well, next thing you know, we get a text message saying, hey, we're having a technical problem, we're working out, bear with us. So that's like another reason to use text messaging, another opportunity to use text messaging to inform people about things like that. When it does happen, and it happens to all of us from time to time. You can also, this is really cool, you can also follow up each live stream with a link to view the recording. So for example, there's some things our church is streaming that happen in the evenings during times when we're kind of doing our family routine. We have our devotionals and things like that. Well, we can't watch it at that moment. So I'll get a text message from the church saying, hey, here's a link to that recorded message that I wasn't able to watch when it was live. Especially important with people using multiple devices to watch your live stream service. This is where, we've all got the phone, we've got the tablet, I've got it running on my television. So text messaging kind of drops it right there in their hand and their phone. So when they're using multiple devices, they're kind of text messaging with the phone, but they're watching it on the screen. So this is a way to still get that message right to them, even when they have multiple devices going, and we all have 2 or 3 screens going at any given time, I think, these days. So there's just some things that we wanted to cover. A little bit of strategy, some techniques, some neat stuff that you can do with text messaging. One of the things that our customers like is our ChurchCast solution actually bundles text messaging, voice messaging, and email messaging. So you can cover all the bases. And it's great to look for a solution that does that. I'm not saying ours is the only one that does it. Ours happens to be my favorite one, of course. But a lot of our customers like that they can do all 3, cover all those bases from one solution. So that's what I had, guys.
That's great, Dylan.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Really good.
You
had a comment flag, right, Tim?
Yeah. So one of the things that got asked while you're sharing was they wanted a little bit more details on specifically for them. So they said, quote, so far we have about 7% unsubscribe rate for our mass texting. Is that good, bad, or average?
That's a great question. Unsubscribe rates, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little stumped. I'm not up on what a good or bad unsubscribe rate is. I will say this, that if you're seeing more unsubscribes than you're comfortable with, then I would really kind of take a look at some of the things we talked about in the slide deck, and that is, are my messages concise? Am I adding value? Start asking yourself, why might people be unsubscribing from my text messages? I'm not saying what you're sending out isn't of value or not what people want, but there's a reason they're not subscribing, and I would probably take a pretty close look at that.
Yeah, as you look at that, it was kind of what came to my mind as I was looking at that number, is going like, all right, I want to make sure that whatever I do, I'm not doing this, right? Like this would be the worst thing I could do with this communication. I guess in your experience, if you're like, hey, make sure you avoid A, B, and C. What would some of your top of the list ones be for people to keep in mind?
Top of the list, I'd say, because one of the questions I get a lot is, well, how many should we send? And my answer is more than a little, less than too much, right?
So really definitive.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it really depends.
Super accurate.
Here again, how much is too much? Well, too much is too much when you're sending things that don't have value. If you have things that constantly have value, then it's okay to send text messages frequently. Now, another thing that you can do that a lot of our customers do is they'll divide or segment their congregations up in groups within our solution so that they're sending out text messages all the time. They're just not to the same people. So the youth might be getting something about an event coming up, and Sunday school classes or a Sunday school class or a small group might be getting something about that's relevant to them. So one thing I will say is don't blast everything to everybody. Segment that up. Send what's valuable to each person individually.
Oh, that's great. That actually reminds me of a good principle that we used to have back at my old church is we would have, because we would do announcements and we would have announcement videos, and we would always have people wanting their thing in the announcement video because that's what was the best form of communication for our church at the time. But we would always go back to that exact rule that you talked about. It's like, who's this reaching? Does this need to be a communication to everybody, or can this be a smaller communication to a select group of people? That we would use examples like, a sewing group. Like, well, okay, it's going to reach maybe 10, 15 people in the church.
Right.
We'll be honest.
Yeah.
10, 15.
That might send me for the unsubscribe
That's actually
button.
probably a little generous.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be on the weekend, but we would use examples like, hey, we have a men's event coming up, a women's event coming up. We have this big family night coming up. That at least bare minimum reaches 50% of the church for most of those. And then, we're talking 100% of the church for the family. So I love that you talked about groups in your tool. That's an awesome thing. I didn't know that. So everyone watching, basically what Dylan was saying is for the main big communication, you can do a mass communication out to them, but where you really get into that great quality communication to keep it important to your people is targeting who gets what, so that you're making sure that you're a parent of a youth. Well, you are getting this notification about youth. Oh, you're a volunteer that is in this area. Well, you're getting this communication, and you're a guest. Well, here's this communication for you. I know it seems like a lot, but groups is great. So that's awesome that you guys can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really important.
And I say you guys, I'm a part of the guys. I'm just saying it.
Yeah. Well, I do. Yeah, I remember. It's funny you bring that up. I do remember at one point at a former church, not this one, not the one I'm at now, but where we used to live back in Augusta. I remember getting text messages and email messages for ladies' events. And I'm like, why is my wife not on this list? Why am I on this list? So and our friends in marketing will say, we don't want to send people content that's going to send them running for the unsubscribe button. And text messaging, it's even easier. All they have to do is reply stop, and you're done. I will say, though, that when people do opt out, one of the things you can do in our solution, and I'm sure many solutions, is you can see a list of people who've opted out, and then you can attempt to contact them in another way to find out just what was it that caused them to opt out? Is there anything we can do to help? Any questions we can answer? And then maybe even encourage them to send that start back to your short code and get back on the list.
Really good.
Hey, that's great. One last thing, because I think it's a really important point, is the whole idea of the CTA or the call to action. I think it's easy for us to go like, hey, I'm going to tell them everything. And that can really leave people paralyzed if it's not super clear, like do this next. And so maybe just a little bit more what you've learn through, especially like the text format of that, what tends to work the best for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I do personally is I'll include like a bit.ly link. I'll shorten my links. In fact, our solution will shorten links for you. And what I want to do is just something real concise. Like, for example, sometimes I'll have prospects who will schedule a phone call with me. And then I'll call them, but they won't pick up. So what I'll do is I'll send them a text message saying, hey, sorry, we missed your call. I'm sure something came up. Let's reschedule. And then I'll kind of use the chevron's little arrow, create a little arrow and say, here's the link, let's reschedule. And that's sort of the call to action. What do I want you to do? I want you to reschedule. So let's get our call back on the books.
I love it.
Good.
Well, I think we're coming up on the end of this. Thank you so much for joining us, Dylan. It's been a great conversation. I can tell from the chat section here, really great content for a lot of people that they've appreciated. So thank you for your time.
Sure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, Tim, let's wrap this up quick, like double time.
All right, I'll cover it. You ready for this?
Okay, do it.
Okay, let me throw the slide up so that we can just go right through it. All right, so we have upcoming webinars that we want to remind you of, but we have some daily ones. So first, the daily webinars that are happening. We have a live streaming that's happening today through Thursday. This has been a hot topic, as we know. So that's being run by Sean from churchstreaming.tv. So that's happening every day. We also have a digital giving that's happening today through Thursday. And both of these webinars are, again, on daily, but they have those very specific topics. So if you need some more help on church streaming, make sure that you join up on that one. If you need some help on digital giving, sign up for that one.
Real quick on the digital giving, those webinars are going to be the same training every day. So you don't need to attend each one. Or if you kind of got it, but not all the way, and you want a refresher course, you can attend those each day and get it dialed in.
It's good. Today we have another bonus webinar. Can I get a bonus? Wait. We got to do it right. Bonus. We got a bonus webinar today. E-giving tips for parishes. It's separate registration, so the mods will drop the link for that one. But then tomorrow and Thursday. So tomorrow we're rethinking risk, cyber security. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. And then Thursday, just some final tips and tricks for Easter. That is this weekend, everybody. If you didn't know, Easter is this weekend. There you go. There you go. So there you go. And then David, you had something that you wanted to ask everyone.
Oh yeah, just again, there's been a lot of great examples people have been sharing of what they've been doing just with different technology solutions as they've been preparing for Easter. So we would love to see those, highlight those, share them. One, to celebrate. I think there's been a lot of challenges and a lot of people overcoming and trying new things. So we would love to celebrate the victories and also just share them as inspiration for other people so that they can go, here's a real world example of how it's been working. So send those in. You can either send us a link to those things in the chat section or email them to careteam@ministrybrands.com.
All right. That's all we have That's all the time that we have for today. So, David, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad that you could join me today.
You stole my line. You can't just, all right. Anyway.
From right underneath you.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It really has been our honor and a pleasure being a part of these conversations. And we look forward to a great conversation about risk tomorrow and hearing from our friends at PMM. See you then.